Hey everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Today, we're diving into a topic that feels like it's straight out of a Cold War movie, but it's happening right now and has major implications for global security. We're talking about nuclear policy, and specifically, some recent headlines suggesting the United States might be rethinking its decades-long pause on nuclear testing. Let's break down what's going on, why it's a big deal, and what it could mean for all of us. So, what's the story? News recently broke that the US is considering updates to its nuclear testing policy. This discussion popped up just before a scheduled meeting between American and Chinese leaders, which instantly made everyone in the international community sit up and pay attention. Why? Because the United States hasn't conducted a live nuclear test since 1992. That is over 3 decades of sticking to a moratorium that has been a cornerstone of global non-proliferation efforts. When officials in Washington were asked about this, they explained that any potential activities would be focused on one thing: ensuring the reliability and safety of the existing nuclear arsenal. Think of it like a mechanic checking a car that hasn't been driven in a while to make sure it still works as intended. However, the details are still pretty vague. We don't know if testing activities means running computer simulations and technical assessments, which is standard practice, or if it means actual, physical, underground field tests. That distinction is incredibly important, and the lack of clarity is what's fueling a lot of the current debate and concern. To really understand why this is such a sensitive topic, we need to look at the broader context. This isn't happening in a vacuum. Over the past few years, we've seen a noticeable shift in the global security landscape. Countries like Russia have been actively developing and showcasing new strategic technologies. This includes things like hypersonic missiles and advanced delivery systems, which are designed to bypass traditional defense systems. This modernization effort by other nuclear powers has created a sense of unease and has definitely heightened concerns about what some are calling a new arms race. This renewed focus on strategic competition puts pressure on every nuclear-armed nation to reevaluate its own capabilities and deterrent posture. In this environment, even a hint of policy change from a major power like the United States sends ripples across the entire world. It's seen as a signal, a message to both allies and adversaries about future intentions and resolve. So, the conversation about US testing isn't just about technical maintenance. It's deeply intertwined with geopolitics and military signaling on a global scale. As you can imagine, the international reaction to this news was swift and varied. Several governments and international organizations immediately voiced their opinions, and a few key perspectives stand out. First, many countries expressed deep concern. For them, the possibility of renewed nuclear testing by anyone, for any reason, is a step in the wrong direction. They emphasize the importance of global agreements like the Comprehensive Nuclear Test Ban Treaty, or CTBT. Even though the US hasn't formally ratified this treaty, it has abided by its core principles for years. These nations worrying that if the US breaks from this unofficial norm, it could create a domino effect, encouraging other countries to follow suit and unraveling decades of progress in nuclear arms control. China's response was also significant. Beijing publicly called on all nations to remain committed to international norms on nuclear restraint. Coming from another major nuclear power, this statement is a clear message urging for stability and predictability. It reflects a desire to keep the existing framework, however fragile, from collapsing. And then there's the United Nations. The UN Secretary-General's office reiterated a long-standing position: any form of nuclear testing would be a serious setback for global peace and security. The UN's role is to promote diplomacy and de-escalation, so from their perspective, an action that could escalate tensions and undermine trust between major powers is something to be avoided at all costs. They see it as a move that could make the world a more dangerous place, not a safer one. So we have a mix of concern, calls for restraint, and warnings about the potential consequences. It's clear that the international community is watching this situation very, very closely. Now, let's zoom out and look at the bigger picture through the eyes of political analysts and observers. What do they make of all this? As with any complex geopolitical issue, there isn't one single interpretation. One school of thought sees this entire situation as part of a larger strategic messaging game. In this view, the discussion about nuclear testing isn't necessarily about an imminent plan to actually conduct a test. Instead, it is a way for the United States to signal its seriousness and resolve to its strategic competitors. It is like a high-stakes poker game where players are trying to gauge each other's intentions without showing their full hand. By floating the idea of resuming tests, the U.S. might be trying to gain leverage in future negotiations or to deter certain actions from other countries. It's a classic move in the world of great power politics, but it's one that carries significant risks if the message is misinterpreted. Another group of analysts urges caution. They argue that without clear information from official sources, it's very difficult and even dangerous to jump to conclusions. They point out that the statements from U.S. officials have been carefully worded and deliberately ambiguous. This could be for a number of reasons. Maybe it's an internal policy debate that has spilled into the public sphere. Or perhaps it's a way to keep options open without committing to a specific course of action. These experts warn against overinterpreting the signals and stress that until there's a concrete policy announcement, we're largely in the realm of speculation. They believe the real story will only become clear over time, as diplomatic conversations unfold and policy decisions are formally made. Both of these perspectives highlight the complexity of the situation. It's a mix of military strategy, diplomatic signaling, and domestic policy, all playing out on the world stage. So, what does this all mean for the future? The long-term impact of this entire episode will really depend on a few key factors. First and foremost is diplomacy. The future of nuclear stability will be shaped by ongoing dialogues between the major powers. High-level meetings, arms control negotiations, and channels for crisis communication are more important than ever. If these countries can find common ground and rebuild trust, they can navigate these challenges without resorting to escalatory actions. If diplomacy fails, the risk of miscalculation and conflict increases dramatically. Second, it depends on how each government chooses to address its security challenges. Will they prioritize military solutions and arms buildups, or will they seek security through cooperation and international agreements? The path each nation takes will influence the decisions of others, creating either a vicious cycle of competition or a virtuous cycle of cooperation. And finally, public and international pressure will play a role. The strong reactions from other countries and international organizations show that there is a powerful global norm against nuclear testing. This collective voice can act as a check on the ambitions of any single nation and push leaders toward more peaceful and stable solutions. In conclusion, this potential shift in U.S. nuclear policy has opened up a Pandora's box of questions about the future of global security. It's a reminder that the nuclear issue, which many of us might have thought was a relic of the past, is still very much a part of our present. While the headlines can be alarming, the situation is still evolving. The final outcome isn't set in stone, and it will be shaped by the choices made by leaders around the world in the coming months and years. We'll be keeping a close eye on this story as it develops. What are your thoughts on this? Do you think this is a necessary step for security or a dangerous move? Let me know in the comments below. Thanks so much for watching. If you found this video informative, please give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing for more deep dives into the big issues shaping our world. Stay safe, and I'll see you in the next one.